So what do you need to do to get into med school? Well, I have a comprehensive list that should definitely help you get your priorities straight and figure out what you need to do in order to get into med school. The first and foremost thing you need to do is maintain a good GPA. That means that you need to maintain all your classes at least above a B, and that finally should lead you to a GPA that's greater than 3.6. That's including both the total GPA and your science GPA. Your science GPA is definitely the more important one. That's what med schools use to tell what kind of science background you have and how strong you are in it, and how you would deal with the rigorous med school curriculum. Now, that also includes all your repeated classes as well. Ideally, you should not have any repeat classes, but that can definitely tell a story. If you didn't do too well in freshman year, but you repeated the class and all your other classes got higher grades and that repeat class also got a higher grade, that definitely tells med schools that you are willing to put in the effort and get those higher grades to show that you are really capable of what you are. The next thing is the Mcat. Now, the Mcat is very scary, let me tell you. I remember like it was yesterday. Terror. But in all seriousness, the Mcat can be a fun and challenging way to test what kind of science you know about, but also a grueling way to test what science you know about. And the requirements for the Mcat really depend on what your targets are. Ideally, you want to apply to both MD and DO schools in your application cycle, but that can depend on what kind of GPA you have and what kind of Mcat you have. Now for the Mcat, for MD schools, you should really aim at a 508 or higher. For DO schools, you should really aim for at least a 500 or higher. Now, that might seem very odd to you that DO schools are really that low. 500 is about the 50th percentile. But slowly, I do assure you that MDs and DOs requirements are going to get very close to each other as more and more people recognize that they are fairly equally qualified, and if anything, DOs have more skills. Another thing to note about the Mcat, you shouldn't really take it more than 3 times. You should go into it planning on only taking it once and getting the best score you have. Let me tell you from my own personal experience, taking the Mcat a second time is not fun. Relearning all your materials and going through the entire process can really drain a lot out of you. So go into it planning on taking it once and get it over with. But also, if you don't do too well on your first Mcat, don't be afraid to take it again. If you get a really good score the second time, that can really show med schools that you're also willing to commit time and effort into showing how good you are. The next thing on the list is something that people will just say that you're checking off a checklist. But unfortunately, that's just how it is, because almost every applicant to med school will have volunteering hours and shadowing hours. Volunteering hours and shadowing hours are one of the most basic things that you need to check off your checklist. And that means that you need to volunteer at a consistent place for a consistent amount of time, and showing that you are willing to help patients verbally, physically, and also help the nurse and secretary staff in hospitals and things like that. You can also volunteer at other places that also relate to clinical experience. Most importantly, you need that clinical experience showing that you're capable of interacting with people in a clinical environment, as well as understanding the ins and outs of how things flow. The next thing you need is shadowing. Now, this also matters if you are going for a DO school. If you are going for a DO, which I think you should apply to both MDs and DOs, you need to get shadowing experience from a DO. DOs do things that will help patients in different ways using different therapeutic ways with their hands, and that requires some sort of knowledge when going into DO school. They will ask you in the interview, what do you know about DOs and why you would be a good fit for DOs? Well, you better have some sort of experience or research backing that up. Next is significant leadership. Well, as a doctor, you're kind of expected to be a leader. You'll be a leader of your immediate medical group, as well as just being a leader to your patients. They will look up to you. So, leadership includes running for president in a club or some sort of electoral board position. doing some sort of tutoring or something, or doing some open houses, maybe being an ambassador to your school, or just going out in the community and being like a big brother, big sister. All these different types of leadership opportunities will help med schools know that you're a leader inside and outside of school, both clinically and non-clinically. What I also did to get some leadership experience is actually take part in a course offered at my school. This course was designed to help you determine what kind of leader you are and how you could use that to help others. And through this, I got certificates that I completed these courses, and I was able to put that in my application stating that I am a trained leader. The next thing is something that I wasn't too happy to do because I just don't like writing, and that's personal statements. I don't like talking about myself too much, but at the end of the day, that's what you need to do to tell med schools that you are eager and passionate about this future embarkment. So a personal statement can honestly make it or break it. Sometimes applicants are just so close that a personal statement is what flips them over the edge one way or another. So what you need to do is start the personal statement early and get it reviewed by lots of eyes. Ask your friends, ask your family, ask your revisors at your school or other people just to read it over and gain feedback. Even if it's sugar-coated, at least you'll know things that they like, and if they didn't mention something, maybe they didn't like it. So then that's something that you can change. Kind of tying into this is recommendations. Make sure that you get at least 3 recommenders. If you do research, get at least 1 from your research advisor and 2 more professors that you had classes with or some sort of significant experience. At least one of them should also be an academic person. Going back to DOs, also try to get a letter of rec from a DO person that you shadowed. And if you did shadow an MD, also get theirs. Just get as many recommendations as you can, and when you go through the schools that you want to apply to, you can filter out what you want to select to each school. Second to last thing is some cool hobbies or things that you do. Med schools kind of want to see you explore everything outside of just medicine and academics. Sometimes you need to show that you're willing to do some arts and crafts or some music or some computer buildings or things like that. Just showing that you're capable of things outside of med school shows that you have a lot of different capabilities and are able to think and not get stressed out from the rigorous academics and future that you'll have in medicine. So make sure you list at least one of those things in your application. Finally, make sure you have future plans. That includes continuing to volunteer, shadow, leadership, research, all the good stuff. Make sure that you have something that you go into in your senior year or your gap year or whatever. Make sure that you have something to put in your application stating that you'll be continuing to do this until the start of med school. This will show that you're still committed, and even if you take a small break, that's okay. As long as you show that you're not just wasting the entire year doing nothing. Even if it's your senior year of college. If you just do classes, that's like whatever. Like you need to be able to do something that's still relevant to medicine, showing that you're still committed. So those are some of the things that I think that should really be in your med school application, things that you should do to get ready for med school. I did not mention a few things like research because even if you do research, you might not actually commit to research. You might not actually like research. So if that's something you can try, something you put in your application and say, look, I tried it, but it wasn't for me. That's something that you could definitely do. But if you really don't like it, you don't have to do it. So that's something that I omitted from the list of things that you should really consider. So if you do like this sort of video and you want to see more topics like this, please let me know. Comment down below. It really helps me out. Also like and subscribe. I'll be making a lot of videos shortly going through the start of my med school journey. Thanks.